Hello my lovelies, welcome back to my channel and I hope you've had a fabulous week. In today's video I'm going to be making yet another Vampire's Wife dress. In last week's autumn inspirations and shopping my fabric stash video I showed you this amazing shocking pink corduroy, and I've been wondering what to do with this fabric for such a long time, like decades actually. And it finally hit me when I saw this fabulous dress from Susie Bick's label, The Vampire's Wife, and I just thought it's a bit of a bright colour, but I am just going to go with it. One of the outtakes from my wardrobe audit and the inspiration video that I did was that, what with one thing and another, and I'm sure you can all relate, I need to feel a little bit magical in my life at the moment, and what better way to make yourself feel a bit magical than to wear an amazing dress like this one in a vibrant, wonderful Schiaparelli shocking pink corduroy. I thought I'd show you how I would make this using industrial or ready-to-wear production methods rather than dressmaking methods or more traditional dressmaking methods, and I'm going to share my tips and tricks on working with a fabric that has a pile like a corduroy or a velvet. So I hope that this is useful, and I hope you get to make yourself a dress that makes you feel magical and wonderful and special. Before I get going, if you haven't already subscribed and you like vintage inspired sewing and DIY style, then please give my channel a like, subscribe and share with your sewing friends. It's really lovely to have you here on my sewing journeys, and your support really means the world to me. So here's my little sketch of the dress, the Vampire's Wife dress. So with her dresses, the bodice and the skirt, the A-line skirt, dartless A-line, are all more or less the same, that core structure of the dresses, and then the sleeves and ruffles and other details are varied depending on the dress, but the cut of the dress is really important with hers. Now hers has what I always think of as a French dart, which is one dart that comes up from the waist, but I've got two darts in my pattern just because, one, I don't want to completely copy as 100% copy, and two, that just works better for my voluptuous shape that I have. I'm really loving this page in my sketchbook actually. Very pleased with this moleskin. And I'm going to be using this Schiaparelli pink, shocking pink. Schiaparelli called this colour shocking. And it's a very fine, lovely needle cord. So I basically have this dress, but I've got to draft these sleeves. I might have these sleeves in another pattern that I can sort of franken-hack the whole lot together. And I'm going to overlock some of the seams, but bind some of the seams. And I'm going to use a very standard industry ready-to-wear construction method, which is different to dressmaking and how you will be shown how to do things in most dressmaking patterns. So I'm going to show you how to make this dress using industry standard ready-to-wear construction methods, which is what would be done in factories, fast fashion or high-end or whatever, and take you through that process. And it's a lot quicker than the standard dressmaking. So hopefully that will be something that is really useful for you. A couple of little tips for you when using corduroy, and actually these work for velvet or any other fabric with a pile. I find corduroy to be a bit more forgiving, but there is if you run your hand on it, there is a right way and a wrong way. I don't really listen to that. But what you should do is think of corduroy and velvet as being a one-directional fabric. So if you're going to place your bodice top here, the shoulders here, then your waistline should be at the top rather than you know, jigsawing it and flipping bits and so on. So because when the light hits this, and the way it feels as well is going to be different. So keep all your pattern pieces in one direction. And most people put right sides together when they fold the fabric and then put the pattern on there. If you just put the wrong sides together and have the pile outwards, that's going to really help with making cutting out so much easier, because this is a pile fabric. If you think of like two bristle brushes reacting against each other, they'll sort of, you know, the fabric has this tendency to walk. It's called walking, which means that it doesn't stay aligned to its other piece. So when you put two bits of velvet together right sides together, or two bits of cord together right sides together, they tend to sort of be naughty, let's say. So what I do is I just have the wrong side together, which doesn't react against itself and stays in place. I've lined up the centre back of the back with the selvage on the back skirt and bodice. So I'm just going to use the selvage rather than overlock or bind the seam. Just it makes life a bit easier, and I like the structure of a selvage. So waist there, shoulders, so that the pile is soft going down the body, and that will be nice when I feel the need to stroke myself, won't it? So I still have to put the sleeve on, but and cut out the ruffles, so I've got to work those out, measure those out. But I'm going to cut this out and then do those.
Everything is cut out apart from the ruffles, and Loki is very helpfully acting as a studio paperweight.
First steps with just about all sewing patterns in dressmaking are to sew the darts, and this is how I do my darts. So I just pop through pins through there and just carefully take the pattern off, and then what I'm going to do is flip this over, and you can see the pins here, and I'm going to pop a pin through all of these on this side, and then I'll show you the next bit.
Very carefully, so as not to displace the pins, I pull the two layers of fabric apart so that it's laying flat.
The dart positions are transferred by pins. So what I now do is I bring these pins together, match them together, and then pin through there. And I do that all the way up. You could use a dressmaker's pen or pencil and transfer these, which, you know, is absolutely fine, but I'm showing you the ready to wear construction method, and this is how I do this.
I always sew into the point of the dart, up the legs of the dart to the apex, and have my pins pointing away from me so that they're easy to take out as you sew. All the darts are sewn first of all, and that's generally the case with most patterns, whatever the garment is. The darts or princess seams or style lines would be sewn first, and then I'm going to press the darts in the direction that they need to go.
This bust dart here, I'm going to snip very carefully along here into the point so that this can be overlocked and lay flat. I've already snipped the other side there, and then it will be pressed open, because the thing with corduroy is it can be a bit bulky. So I'm going to be overlocking all the seams separately and pressing everything flat.
Next step is to pin the bodice panels to the skirt panels, and I do this on both the front and both of the backs.
I am sewing the front completely and then sewing the back completely. Cat in the way. I have pinned both the backs like this with pins side on, and yes, I am going to sew across the pins along that seam. I know probably makes some of you feel a little bit itchy, but it was how I was taught to sew ready to wear industry production at university. So I've done the same on the other back, the same on the front, and I'm going to sew those. And then the next bit is to put the zip in to the centre back, and I always do a centre lap zipper. I am going to do a little tutorial of that, and also exciting news, you are getting the inside news before anybody else. I'm actually starting to put together my own classes, online classes and workshops, skills-based workshops, and the first one I'm doing is mastering zips for dressmaking. So that will be on its way, and excuse all the talking outside. There seems to be some kind of meeting.
Here I am brazenly sewing over all those pins. I've never yet had an accident, but let's not tempt fate. I find that pinning side on stops the piled fabric from shifting. I overlocked the waist seam together as the fine baby cord was less bulky than I thought it would be.
I'm going to need to sew the centre back seam up to where the zip starts, and it's at this little grommet point or stopper here, bottom stopper, which is quite an amusing phrase. So I'm going to sew up to there, and then I'm going to tack the rest of that seam closed. So the back is completely assembled, very nearly matching, just slightly out. So you can see that I've sewn this up with a slightly bigger stitch. It's still like, because I'm using an industrial machine, the stitches are smaller, but anyway, I'm going to place my zip in now. And it's just so much easier if you sort of put zips in at the end, really, as one of the last things before hemming and any other finishing bits. It's just so much easier to put into a dress when the back is separate. The zip is tacked on in a contrast colour. What I'm going to do is top stitch the zip in place using this contrast thread as a guide, and I know like this, that stopper, the grommet is about here, so I can get the zip sewn really quickly, and then I have to unpick this seam, which will be a little bit trickier because the sort of tacking stitch on the industrial machine stitch is smaller than on my Benina, and take these out, and then anyway, then the zip's done, and then I can sew the shoulder seams together and then put the sleeves in. Et voila.
In order to show you the construction method or order of construction, I've drawn this little diagram for you. It's just easier to see than the whole dress. So I have fully sewn both of the backs and also the front, and I've overlocked the shoulder seams and the side seams, and I've put the zip in. So first thing, you're going to sew the backs to the front or fronts to the back along the shoulder seam, and then press them flat. And once you've done that, you're going to sew the sleeve head into the armhole flat. So you're going to do that on both sides. It works for any kind of sleeve that isn't a two-piece sleeve.
So here we are so far. If I was using a finer fabric, I would do the net shoulder poufles inside, which I showed you in the last Vampire's Wife video.
And here is my finished Vampire's Wife style dress. I sewed up the side seams and I've added the ruffles. I worked these out by doubling the circumference of the cuffs and drawing a rectangle directly onto the fabric by this measurement by 12 centimetres depth of ruffle, and then sewing it into a sort of tube, gathering it up and sewing it onto the cuffs. I did the same process for the hem. I decided to bias bind the neckline of the dress in a pale pink cotton bias binding. Actually, it would have been really lovely to use a Liberty print instead. Maybe make my own bias binding. I think sometimes those little touches on the insides of garments are just as joyful as the actual garment itself. But here is the finished dress in all its glory, and I'm over the moon with it.
I hope you've enjoyed spending time with me in my little cottage by the sea sewing this vampire's wife dress, and I hope it inspires you to maybe give your own version a go. I can tell you 150 million% I feel magical in this dress. Wherever you are in this world, you are keeping safe and well, and remember that you can make this world a better place, just one little stitch at a time. Take care, my lovelies. See you next time. Bye.